We'll go ahead and start with a roll call. Chair Lisa Hanson present. Vice Chair Jacob Miller.
Present.
Alder Veronica Corpus-Dax.
Present.
Commissioner Sydney Bremer.
Present.
Commissioner Darius Daniels.
Present.
Commissioner Autumn Linsmeyer.
Present.
And Commissioner Ken Ravinsky.
Present.
Moving on to the approval of the agenda for the June 21st, 2021 meeting of the Green Bay Plan Commission.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Alder Corpus-Dax and a second by Commissioner Linsmeyer. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? And that is approved. And moving on to the approval of the minutes from the June 7th, 2021 meeting of the Green Bay Plan Commission.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All right, a motion by Alder Corpus-Dax and a second by Vice Chair Miller. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? And then to regular business. Item number 1, discussion with possible action on site plan approval for 421 Erie Road, Oak Park Place.
All right, so this is actually my agenda item. Paul Newmeyer is on vacation, good for him. And so Stephanie's covering for Board of Appeals, and I'm gonna present her report the best I can. But this is a conditional use permit for an expanded assisted living facility on 421 Erie Road. It was submitted by the property owner of Oak Park Properties, Hayden Frank. As you can see, it has already just been developed and it is a PUD. So the comprehensive plan designates this as a traditional neighborhood development. And this PUD overlay occurred in March 2015. It is for assisted living, and basically their main request is to expand a wing of it. And you can go to the next slide. So this is the aerial photo and then also the site plan on the left. If you can see down in the bottom left area, there is an extended wing that they would like to put in. I think it matches the existing structure, and it's also located on the west side of the Grandview Place project area. Their main request is to amend the existing CUP. And they want to add 12 additional assisted living units to the original, just under 12,000 square feet. Next slide, please. So the future land use has this as a medium intensity retail office housing. This is why it's a PUD. They wanted to put assisted living in there and also expand. Next slide. And the current zoning, as you see, is mostly residential and low density residential. There's also a little bit of you have the PUD around it as well. So this is the elevation on the side. It all seems to match the same structure and design, exterior, facade as well. And then we are recommending approval.
Okay, thank you so much, Madison. Anyone on the commission with questions for staff or any discussion? If I could get the gallery view back, that I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Madison, just to confirm, the pictures that we saw were of the sections that have already been built. but there's not been any construction yet on this section, right?
No, there has not been any additional construction until they have the conditional use permit to expand.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Alder.
Thank you. And contact me regarding this as opposed to it. I'm not sure if that person will be here tonight to speak, but I will just read you the 3 reasons. He and his wife are opposed to the CUP for 3 reasons. About once a week, a rescue squad goes down the road to the facility. 2, they have 3 shifts of workers, so at certain times of the day, there are cars driving on Erie. And 3, the expansion will be across from their home. No one contacted me in favor of it. So this is for your information to have at plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder Dorf. Go ahead, Commissioner Daniels.
Question is for Madison. Madison, has this been before us previously? It seems very familiar, or was this another? Oh, it has. Okay.
This is the plan development required any new site plans to come through the Plan Commission for approval. So the original had that as a condition. So this is really a site plan approval.
What did we approve previously? Which piece of the puzzle was it that we had?
I'm thinking the PUD.
Wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. I was having the same confusion, DJ.
Yeah, thank you.
Sorry about that. We're just bringing this forward for discussion for the extension of the original PUD to expand the assisted living for this site.
I got a question bouncing off that, and I don't know if this is for Madison or anyone else, maybe. I don't remember too many PUDs that we added in a requirement to come back for site plan review with us. That I can't recall any other ones. How often are we adding that into the PUDs nowadays?
You want me to answer that, Madison?
Yeah, you do that.
All right. Those are not real typical with plan developments. You see a lot more of those in with the redevelopment authority when they are selling property or deeding property over. They want to keep control of it. I can't answer why they put this one in here for any expansions to go through Plan Commission for approval. It might have been because the original PUD might not have had really great design control. And they wanted to make sure what was going in matched what's there, and the developing traditional neighborhood, that this is really the first piece of that development area.
So kind of a extra, maybe if you will, in this case, just since it's kind of getting started as one of the first major parts of Grandview.
Correct. Yep. And I think it was an extra protection just to be sure that the designs weren't inappropriate. Like if they were to sell it off and the next developer would come in with an expansion that didn't match, without those controls in the PUD, you guys are the control. The Plan Commission.
Got it. It seems a little excessive in this regard, and I'd hate to slow up a project in the future due to it. So that's why I'm asking, just to understand why it was included in this one versus other ones.
And Madison made clear that, in fact, the style matches very well that have been built, right? Yep, I see Neil nodding too. But you can disagree with the boss if you want, Madison.
I
count
agree.
on her too. Sometimes, Commissioner, I count on her to give that other opinion. So,
my question for staff, nothing has changed with the site plan since the last time you guys brought this through. Like looking through it, it didn't look like anything changed. Just to confirm that.
Thanks.
Correct. Yeah, nothing has changed. So the design does match the exact design of the building that's out there. I don't think the original plan development, I believe, probably that didn't have this wing on it. So this wing is new, but the PUD in its entirety is pretty much the same thing. There's been no amendments to it.
So I know that you are pushing for approval of this, but I'm seeing it says discussion with possible action. You want us to take action today, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
We always
All
want to
right.
take action.
We
right.
don't want to be presumptive.
Right. Okay, got it.
Make
motion to
approve.
Is there
I would
any other-
second that.
Wait, who was the motion? Oh, okay. So
Right,
motion
I got-
by Alder Corpus and a second by Commissioner Krajewski. Is there any further discussion amongst the commission? All right, hearing none, I'm going to go ahead with a voice vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, and with that, it is approved going forward to city council. And what does it say, 21st? 29th? Is there a meeting
Think so. Next Tuesday?
next Tuesday? Is that,
Yes.
am I math correctly?
Yes.
Council on the 29th. All right. And moving on to item number 2. Consideration with possible action on a request to amend the planned unit development at 610 North Broadway for the new community clinic submitted by John Leroy, Mao and Associates on behalf of the new community clinic.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'm going to share the PowerPoint and just kind of refresh everybody's memory. Let me know when this pops up. I know there's sometimes a delay. You good? Okay. So this is the site. The site is actually this piece here on the corner of Mather and North Broadway. It is connected in a PUD with the MEW shelter. So you I know you've seen this before, the rail yard to the south, primarily low density residential to the north and west. Possibilities on Broadway directly to the west. All right, future land use shows it as a industrial land use, but if you remember, it's planned developments pretty much all over this area. Again, this big black line is a planned development line. The underlying zoning is a general industrial, kind of harking to the older uses. Across the street is a downtown mixed-use district, in the corner a gas station. So this is actually coming back from a postponement from June 7th. There were 2 major concern projects when it was proposed. One was the height of the building being 1 story, and the second was the frontage along North Broadway, or the large gap of building frontage where it was just a parking lot, so to speak, were kind of the 2 big issues. So after that meeting, staff had the petitioner and the architect. We talked about really those 2 items. So the first was the building itself. And I'm going to kind of zoom down. So this is the elevation of the building, the 4 elevations. This is going to be the view from Broadway. It's going to be your primary view. And then this is your primary view from Mather, from the 2 street sides. The building itself is 1 story, but it does have a higher overall height than a typical single story would. They oversized the ceilings and kind of made it a little bit bigger, but it is still a 1-story building. It also has some higher parapet walls, so to speak, to give it a little bit of extra height. I'm going to just quick zoom through the elevation. So this is the elevation from the corner of Mather and Broadway, or rendering, perspective drawing. This is going to be the building as you're going north on Broadway. It's a little bit closer. We'll kind of get to this in a second. So that is pretty much it for the elevations. We did talk with the architect at length, and we had our designer also internally, Aaron Rosnick, our site designer, look at this project. And the architecture of the building itself, we really could not, as staff, find a good compromise to add an element to add height. So some of the things that we talked about was maybe a tower element on the corner, a larger parapet wall, sort of Western fake fronts, the second story. There were quite a few issues with all of those. Primarily, though, it would really detract from the architecture of the building, trying to cobble a piece onto it. City staff did not have a good option to get some more height, with the exception of adding a second story. The petitioner indicated a second story really wasn't considered, primarily because they have built-in expansion area on the ground floor, some security issues with mixing uses in a clinic setting or a hospital type setting. And kind of with that, I know the architect, Rustin, and the representative from the clinic are on tonight, so I'm not going to kind of dwell on that too much. But we really didn't come up with options for a larger height. But the second item that we discussed was really this here, basically just being parking lot and a little bit of grass. Had a big discussion on that. We kind of took some other things in the city, primarily the east side, where, columned and steel fence / wall is often put in parking lots to give that street presence. So it's not like you're walking past a big open space. It has a presence there. Also landscaping. What I wanted to point out on this slide as well, the little blue box is the bus stop. And I kind of have a picture of the bus stop here. It does have a art wrap on it. Kind of poor landscaping and whatnot, but this is the existing bus stop. So in talking with the applicants, one of the things we thought to break up this frontage, obviously you can't put anything in front of the driveway. You have a lot of green space, bike parking, and paths to the north. So we had talked about expanding that bus stop seating area. And they came back with, yes, that is something they would be willing to do. So this is on private property, but it would be an expansion. Again, this bus stop is pretty small for a pretty busy stop, which is anticipated to get more busy with the clinic. So you can kind of see what the site looks like here with the bus stop, and you can kind of see the bus stop here in the corner. So what they came up with is basically installing this columned wall and then also expanding the bus stop area with public seating. So the full design of the public seating has not been determined at this point. They would work with staff. We didn't have a lot of turnover time. It's only 2 weeks. But they would more than double the size of the bus stop. And some type of decorative seating, so it wouldn't be just benches. For one, that's going to break up this long line of frontage and the wall. But also functionally, it's going to work as a nice little amenity to the street. Like I always say, your improvements are in little details, increments. So you get 100 little increments on a block and you got something. So this is a start to that. Our arts coordinator had said she would be willing to work with the applicant to maybe dress this up a little bit to be a little more artsy. So this is kind of how they're addressing that frontage. The one thing I do need to point out is that this wouldn't be an actual bus stop seating. Transit is not interested in having any additional stuff besides the shelter itself. They don't want any liability. They don't want any maintenance. In this scenario, the city would take the easement for the extended bus stop. It would be acting just like a bench that's in the right of way as far as liability goes. Maintenance, snow removal, and construction would all have to be part of the project by NEW Clinic. So they would continue they have to do the sidewalk anyway, but they would continue to shovel that area and maintain it if there's any issue. But the liability would fall into the city with it's not really an indemnification, but we have a specific liability for on-street facilities. So with that easement, they would kind of fall into that. So those were really the two elements that were being added to address the two concerns that came out of Plan Commission. The petitioner will talk about the building height if you allow them, but staff was very pleased with how they decided to kind of break up that frontage, add some landscaping, and actually add a very nice functional seating area. So with that, our recommendation is not changing, but we're recommending approval of the request, and that draft planned unit development will contain the language for the wall and the seating. So with that, I can stop the screen so Lisa can see everybody. And I can jump back on right away. So
Thank you so much, David. All right, so do we have any questions for staff or any discussion amongst the commission?
David, can you put that last image up? Forgive us that we're going to hide from you again. And tell us a little bit about what aspects of the rail yard show beyond the building, because I think the major concern last time wasn't just scale, but scale in relationship to the rail yard.
all right. Well, let me see. So it is difficult because the rail yard images are not on these aerial photographs. It's hard to see them, but right in this area is the parking and the garage spaces and the storage units for Broadway Lofts. And then there is 4 stories of building that pretty much come up right to well, you can see it here. So this is the 4-story Broadway Lofts structure with one of their emergency access points coming out here. So it's kind of the back of the building. And it is a 4-story building. The NEW shelter to the east has a 1-story right here, which you can see, and then it jumps up to 3 stories as you go further east. If I go to the north, let me bring this. You have mainly single families and a few businesses to the north. Those are 1.5 stories, 2 stories homes. To the west, obviously a single-story gas station, but primarily 2-story homes along this portion of Broadway. So in the rail yard itself, this is the 4-story Lofts building with their garages and storage units, 2-story townhomes. As you go further south, there's a 2-story building here, or 2.5, I guess, 8-unit building. These are the existing former Larson buildings, which are now being activated as part of the rail yard. And there will be a 5-story building going up at this corner. I don't know if that answers your question, Sid, but to kind of give you an idea of the heights around there.
Well, it does. So we don't have an 8-story building right next to this complex.
No, we don't. We have a 3-story here with a 1-story section on the western side.
And the 4-story lofts along in the white space. And then you mentioned a single story across the street, but the design is for an additional 16 feet added to the usual single story. So that would be pretty close to a wash, wouldn't it?
Well, it is a single story, and the architect can probably answer these better. It's a taller single story. It's like a story and a quarter.
Okay.
That's how they kind of have it designed.
Thank you.
Some of the items such as wind load, construction methods, materials used, as you start adding height or weight to the top of the building, it starts to have a trickle-down effect on cost and engineering as well. So again, I'm sure can answer that much better than I can.
Thank you.
Yeah, just quickly, I would like to add, knowing this was on the agenda again, I did just take a walk in this area. It was the first time in all of my time here that I've actually walked all the way down Broadway the other way. And Sid, to your point, when you get to that intersection, it is very transitional. So you see homes. I didn't know there was a herb shop or a taxidermy or a deer play shop right there on Broadway. But as I was walking down, I saw all of that. But the Broadway lofts, they really do block that. I almost say block that section off, but it's almost like it's once you hit the Broadway loft, then it's a whole nother area. So to Sid's point, I think on our last meeting, well, I don't necessarily know if we need a big building in that intersection. And once you walk that area and see all the other buildings that are there, what the clinic has proposed kind of makes sense because it fits in and it's transitional. And it's really its own little segment because the Broadway loft is really where all of the big buildings start. So if you haven't had a chance, I just want to throw that in there because I did go down there and walk, look at the space to see how it would look. And from a aesthetic point of view, because it is transitional, it looks fine. Or I think it would look fine.
I guess I would say just to counter that, when you're coming down Mather from the other direction, which would be coming if they're coming off the highway from the Atkinson exit, that corner really is your entrance to Broadway. So looking at it from that perspective of that's where you're turning, that's kind of where your density starts, where you're going to see it. So I see what you're saying, but I would say countering it from the other direction and looking at those buildings that are across the street from there. Yeah, they are smaller in height right now, but if you look at the future plan, there's room for growth there. So I don't necessarily see the argument that it is the right fit to have a one-story building there. My biggest one is just that parking lot there doesn't. I don't like to see that parking right up to Broadway. And even with the fence that was added, it's just still the broken tooth. So I don't know. I would listen to other arguments about it, but that's where I'm standing on it.
Other questions for staff? Go ahead, Alder Scannell.
Yeah, on the rendering, I'm wondering if it would make more sense. I don't know if that's just how set that was, to put the additional seating on the north side as opposed to the south side. If the new community is going to be taking care of that, it seems like maybe it'd be more sense to put that on the south side, and the fencing that's on the south side or on the north side, and the fencing that's on the north side flip flop it, put it on the south side. Does that make any sense, or does that make any difference, or is that?
Well, the fencing runs the whole length of the parking lot, so it's on the north side and the south side.
I didn't see it I didn't notice behind the.
Yep, and the thought process behind putting the extra seating area south is that it's more centralized to the parking lot, so it would be a block of that block face. Is the reasoning why the thought was to be on the south side rather than the north side.
Okay. And since I'm here, I might as well keep spitting what I'm thinking. I would love to see a huge building there. I think it'd be great to see a 10-story building there. I'd like to go big and tall everywhere in our downtown. But I think giving the usage of what's planned there, the clinic, which I think is an important facility to have in our downtown. And I can see that for them, a bigger building just isn't viable. Or, and I could see them not wanting to do more or being concerned about being part of a structure that has many other uses. So I kind of lean into, doing whatever we can to make this more compatible for the area. But I do like the idea of having new clinic right there, town. So.
I guess, did anyone from the commission have questions for the, what's the word I'm looking for? David?
Petitioner or the applicant?
Applicant, yes. Do we have any questions for the applicant? Should
May
we
I make a motion to open the floor then?
All right.
Is that a motion, Sid?
Yeah, that was.
Okay.
That was a motion.
I'll second.
A motion by Commissioner Bremer, second by Alder Corpus Dax. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. So I guess if you, do we have questions for the petitioner?
I would recommend if they would like to make a statement would probably be good, especially from Rustin, who is the architect. He can address some of the structural issues and the design elements. And then I think Ms. Franzen probably could talk about reasons why. And John Leroy here as well, and he's always a wealth of information too. So.
Okay.
All right. Well, yeah, thanks for listening, everyone, and for taking the time to consider our amendment here. I appreciate the discussion. I got to watch the video of the last meeting to kind of catch up to speed to what's been going on as far as the discussion and speaking with David and Paul down at the city to really address those concerns. It's kind of the backstory for the building itself. We did start a little bit smaller. So the building that you see on the site plan is about 2,000 square feet larger than what we had started with. And part of that is in growth for that expansion. It didn't necessitate a second floor, but we did include, there's 3 departments in the building. And each department has a little bit of growth. So we did plan for that. However, it didn't, we didn't have the reason to go up, I guess, as far as density. But we did try to make use of, those urban pools that are being, used for the rail yard district to the south, trying to locate the building on the corner, make it as high as we can. We like the nice tall ceiling heights anyways, but just to bring that to the exterior as well. And knowing that we couldn't make up for that overall building height, we did try to incorporate as many art as we could through soldiery coursing, pilasters on the exterior, painted steel and canopies to really dress up that facade and make it a really nice building for that corner. And what we can't really see on the renderings, in the background with the shelter, that corner piece on Mather and Broadway actually sits about the midway point of that second floor window of the shelter. So it is relatively tall for a 1-story building. But then in speaking with Dave, we did look at raising that parapet height, but our structural engineer indicated that our parapets are limited with the wood frame structure of the building. So those really can't grow any higher. And we did look at some of those other features about kind of the little mansard roof features or doing some additional screening or relocating the rooftop units, all that sort of those details. Went through that whole exercise to make sure we exhausted those options and really felt that the building itself was, for what's going there, was kind of settled. And like you said, we started playing with it and it kind of detracted from the overall design, or it kind of, had a snowball effect on some other features. So we really tried to address the site characteristics. And that's kind of where we got into the bus stop. I know, Kim, you could, correct me if I'm wrong. The bus stop there is a very desirable feature for the clinic, having a lot of their clients come in using public transit, or, in the site plan, we try to provide a bike area for people coming on bike, as well as vehicles. I know the surface parking lot, being on Broadway, trying to disguise that a little bit with that wall. And we did get rid of a few parking stalls. I know we didn't want to go too much further down in number. I think we were sitting at 40 originally with the last site plan that was submitted, but we got rid of those 2 at that southwest corner. So now we're down to 38. And I know Kim, between their staff, as well as kind of a rough calculation about how many visitors could be on site at a given time, we needed a minimum of 32 parking stalls, which leaves 6 extra now that we got rid of those 2 at that southwest corner. And some of that we like to have a little bit extra if it's, a high capacity day or in multiple vehicles for an appointment, as well as for in the winter time, having a little bit extra space for snow if there's some, snow buildup on site before it melts. Kim, I don't know if you wanted to address some of the, organizational details there.
Yeah, so thank you join your conversation tonight. So as you're aware, NEW Community Clinic has been here in the community for 50 years. And as the board really looked at where our growth was, being close to the downtown was very important. As Rustin shared, a large majority of clients use public transit. So this really was the ideal location as they were looking at land and ensuring that we can provide service on the east and the west side of Green Bay and to have accessible healthcare to those in need. So, really, as Rustin shared, looked at in doing this building. So each of the departments that are in there have room. We can be good fiscal stewards as we look at taking our programming forward. And as Rustin shared, really tried to work through how can we incorporate this into the Broadway district so that it can be a building that can serve long term as we meet the needs of the clients and those in our community.
Thank you so much, Kim. And if you could actually state your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, thank you. So I am Kim Franzen, CEO for NEW Community Clinic. And I am at 622 Bodarts, Green Bay, Wisconsin, 54301.
Thank you so much. And Rustin, if I could get you to give for the record, that was my bad. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I'm Rustin Schwant with Somerville Architects and Engineers, and we're at 2100 Riverside Drive in Green Bay, Wisconsin.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Does anyone have any questions for the applicants? Go ahead, Bremer.
I think to Kim, am I right that NEW Community Clinic is a nonprofit?
Yes, that is correct. We are federally grant funded so that we can serve here in the community as a 501c3.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Is there anyone else from the public wishing to speak on this item? If not, I'll entertain a motion to close the floor.
So,
Thanks, Sid moved.
Yeah, so a motion by Commissioner Bremer. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Miller. All those in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Any opposed? All right, well then, otherwise I would entertain a motion.
At least I'll go. I think I was one of the few who wasn't too concerned about the height when we had the discussion last week. Was more concerned about the parking lot and just that situation. It's good to see what's been done there, and I like the direction that it's going. I'm not sure really what we're trying to get out of this, to be honest. I think they brought a good proposal forward. The building looks nice. Yes, it's not an outstanding, tall signature building, but I think what's going there, community needs. It's in a great location. Trying to squeeze out a floor or something, I don't really see how we're going to get that out of this situation. So I think it's great for what it is, especially considering the neighborhood it's in, what's around it, and I will move to approve.
I'll happily second. I think it's a very good bridge both ways, up Mather Street and on up Broadway. And I'm very pleased that the NEW Community Clinic is willing to expand in this way to serve our community.
Okay, so we have a motion by Vice Chair Miller and a second by Commissioner Bremer. Is there any further discussion?
I would just like to add, I do appreciate the building. Like it's a very nice looking building. I don't think enough has been done with the parking as far as screening it. It is not the right scale for that corner. And I just look at so many other lots or a few other lots downtown that use less space and have more building. And I just, for that reason, I'm going to be voting no on this.
I want to toss out an idea for any community clinic to be thinking about with their architect. I know that you all are planning to have some exterior public art around the building. And I'm wondering, since there are different ways of making a building make a statement besides size, whether or not the corner of the building on Mather and Broadway might accommodate some kind of large sculptural element that could kind of wrap around that corner. I'm not sure what it would be. I'm just tossing it out there. Certainly not as an or a requirement, just an idea.
Yeah, and I certainly appreciate, I think we all like taller buildings if it's possible, but this is the clinic being right next door to the shelter. I think that's a really good fit, and being so close to the downtown area on the west side, I think it's really going to serve a population on this side of town. It's probably only about 5 blocks from where I am right now. That I think it's a needed thing. Would I love it to be bigger? Sure, but it doesn't sound like in their capacity that that's something that they can do, and they've already expanded it 2,000 square feet, and I think it's a good fit for the area. And what they did as far as the renderings look to be nice, and I think it's going to be a great fit on that corner. Is there any other discussion? Otherwise, we do have a motion by Vice Chair Miller and a second by Commissioner Bremer. All right, we'll go ahead with a voice vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 And those opposed?
Nay.
All right. Right. And then let's see here. So six yays and 1 nay. And that will move forward then to City Council on the 29th. Moving on to item 3, which is a public hearing. This public hearing has properly posted and public notification has been published in the Green Bay Press. The Plan Commission is interested in hearing public comments on the subject agenda items. We invite your comments and ask that after your name has been called, you state your address, whether you represent a group or association, whether you favor, oppose, or are only providing information in this matter, and your comments or concerns. We also ask that you confine your testimony to facts related to the proposal at hand and avoid repetitive testimony. You must be recognized by the Plan Commission in order to speak, and please address your comments to the chair. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes. We will now open the public hearing on authorize a conditional use permit for a 2-family dwelling located at 1406 Smith Street, submitted by Nancy Myers, property owner. And if staff could give a brief overview, please.
Thank you, David. So this request came in by Nancy Myers, and this petitioner is actually not able to make this meeting, so I will try and answer any questions that she has relayed to me. The reason for this request is to permit the addition of an extended handicap bathroom and laundry area and an ADA accessible compliant ramp in the front. It is located in, I don't know if you want me to keep going. I can keep going if you want to go to the next slide. Thank you. So it is located in mostly a low density residential R1 single family area. This resident has multiple health conditions that make it very difficult for the wheelchair to turn in the bathroom, as well as the laundry room being in the basement. And the current zoning is still R1 low density residential. As you can see right there on Smith Street, it's a pretty low traffic area as well, ends in a cul-de-sac. And here's some aerial photos. I just wanted to point out though, there is no changes to the side of this existing structure. The bathroom, what they want to extend is in the back, and staff believes that there is definitely enough area if they would like to extend the bathroom to make it ADA compliant.
Okay, thank you so much, Madison. All right, so with the public hearing, looking to hear from people who are in favor of the proposal. Is there anyone wishing to speak in opposition to the proposal? And is there anyone wishing to provide information only? Is there anyone wishing to speak? Is there anyone wishing to speak? Is there anyone to speak? And yes, if you are calling in on dial-in audio, it is *6 to unmute. Thank you for that. All right, let the record reflect that no one came forward and this public hearing is now closed. Moving on to the corresponding actionable item, which is item number 4, consideration with possible action on a request to authorize a conditional use permit for a 2-family dwelling located at 1406 Smith Street, submitted by Nancy Myers, property owner. So I guess, have you already given us the complete overview of the item?
Well, I can add on a little bit more with our recommendation is of approval, as it is not affecting any of the adjacent properties. We've had no complaints with adjacent property owners that were notified within 200 feet. It's not detrimental to public health, safety, general welfare. So generally, if something is non-conforming to our zoning code, but is still compliant for a CUP, I think staff is in, we are recommending approval. We are in compliance with that.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Buck.
You know, that the CUP is really to allow the pre-existing 2-family use. So it's an R1 district, but it's a 2-family home. So for them to do an addition, it has to come into compliance with the code. So being that it's a 2-family in a single-family district, they would have to get the CUP before they can do the addition.
Correct.
That's the real reason why you need the CUP. It's not because they want to remodel the bathroom. It's because they're doing an expansion on a non-conforming.
So I have a question, because looking at the building, David, it looks like it was built as a 2-family.
It very well may have been, yes.
So
At one
it was built as a 2-family in an R1.
Right. I mean, so the history of zoning, I mean, it could have been that 2 families were permitted in the R1 district at one time in history. It could have had a different zoning at one time, had more of a 2-family zoning, and that was changed throughout the years. This home, I don't know when it was built, but by looking at it, I'm guessing 20s, 30s. So, yeah, I don't know what made it non-conforming. But yeah, it does appear to be a original 2-family build, but I don't know that for certain.
I had a question for staff. Looking at the aerial photo, it looked like there already was a ADA ramp on the front of the building. In the application, it looked like they were adding that. Can you just confirm that or just elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, I can add that in. I think that they went ahead and put the ramp in the front, and the building inspectors had a little bit of some issues with that. They did want to include that in this application. However, this is mostly for a grant that they were awarded through the Disability Veteran Program for the extended bathroom and laundry area. But they did add in the ramp.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I guess with that, I would make a motion to approve.
And then second, this seems to me very much in the public interest to support the provision of resources that would allow an injured vet to stay in the area.
So a motion by Commissioner Ravinsky and a second by Commissioner Bremer. Any further discussion? All right, hearing none, I'll go ahead with a voice vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so that will unanimously move ahead to City Council on the 29th. And item number 5 is public.
If I could just thank the Planning Commission quickly, and I got to run. So I just want to thank the Commission. Thank you all. You're doing very much. Have a great night.
Hi, Alder Scannell, thank you. All right, so item number 5, public hearing on a request to create a planned unit development at 2400 East Mason Street, submitted by Garrett Bader, 2400 East Mason Street, LLC property owner. I think that might be a little bit of a misprint there.
Well, let me give you just a quick overview. And I think it's submitted by Garrett for 2400 East Mason Street, LLC, or the property owner.
Or is it the name of the LLC?
Yes, 2400 East Mason Street, LLC.
Was his normal business, Green Bay. Okay,
Yes.
Got it.
Okay, so I have up on the screen an aerial photograph so you can see the lot itself. It is one of 9 outlots to what is known as Easttown Mall, which is to the south, Easttown Shopping Center. This is the current location of Fazoli's restaurant. The petitioner at this time is asking to come forward and divide the lot, remove the structure first, divide the lot, and put 2 new restaurants on the site itself. The reason why it's coming through for a planned unit development is, if you remember in our last discussion on Easttown Mall, there is 12 different planned unit developments over the top of this property. Unfortunately, fortunately, I guess, or unfortunately, the outlots are only regulated per signage. So the only thing that's regulated on these outlots is signage. The underlying zoning is low density residential. So whatever happened in the past, I don't know, but so we're putting a brand new planned unit development right over the top of this lot. And so that is the basics of the request for the public hearing, and I'll get into discussion.
All right, sounds great, David. Thank you. All right, so with the public hearing, we're looking to take from those who are in favor of the project. Is there anyone wishing to speak in opposition to the project? And is there anyone wishing to provide information only? Is there anyone wishing to speak? Is there anyone wishing to speak? Is there anyone wishing to speak? And let the record reflect that no one came forward, and this public hearing is now closed. And moving to the corresponding item number 6, consideration with possible access to create a planned unit development at 2400 East Mason Street, submitted by Garrett Bader, 2400 East Mason Street, LLC, property owner.
Thank you. And I'm going to get a little bit more into the details here. So I kind of gave you the breakdown. Again, this is the site itself, Fazoli's, former Fazoli's. Kind of zoomed in a little bit closer. You can see how it's designed. The Panera Bread site and some of the other outlots here. Parking lot for Easttown and the Ring Road, which is the main access point to all of these outlots. There is no access allowed on Mason. The future land use plan, as nobody should be too shocked, shows commercial uses. Across the street is high-intensity housing, and that's kind of consistent along the Mason Street corridor until you get a little bit further out of town, or you're in town, but further out. What you'll see, this little dashed outline, are planned unit developments again. The zoning on the site itself is R1, low-density residential, but there are these planned developments over the top. Again, Easttown Mall itself has 12 different planned unit developments over the top of it. They started in '79. They ended in 2017 with the addition, or excuse me, I think it was 2019, with the addition of the limited production in the back of the mall. But these outlots along the frontage, the PUD only addresses signage. So when this petition came through, we realized we're going to have to address it individually. And I'll get into a little more detail what we're going to be doing going forward. You've heard it before, but I'll say it again. So petitioner is looking, so this would be what we call the Ring Road down on the south side here. It's the interior road of the mall. Mason would be up on the top. So the existing building is sitting there now. The petitioner is looking to split it pretty close to in half, about 0.4 acres and 0.5 on the other side. With that, he would like to redesign the site. So one side would get a new, I guess the exhibits have the name. So it would get a new Cousins restaurant with a drive-through and a bypass lane. Some individual parking. It would have a patio area here on the north and some landscaping as well as its own dumpster. You can kind of see the elevations of the building. Staff had a little bit of concern with this kind of larger wall area. But after talking to the petitioner, there are joint lines in this building to kind of give it some definition and some, I guess, break up the mass. And then these specifically put in as they'll shine light and kind of break up those walls as well. In the future, if there's signage on there, I don't know. But currently, this is kind of the site design. So your major side that's going to is this one. And then the side that's going to face south, I believe, is this. And this is the northern side. And then when you go to the other lot itself, I'm getting a weird image on my screen. Okay, this is a Chipotle restaurant. On the other side, a lot of the same features, but a little bit larger for this user. So a larger outdoor patio area, some larger green spaces. Again, their own dumpster, the drive-through element with the bypass lane. And as you'll notice, there is no setback between the two properties. They've already supplied staff with cross-access and cross-parking easements. So it kind of acts as sort of a mini campus by itself. And you can kind of see the design here. We had less concern with sort of that large wall. There really is no section of really large wall except for this interior, and that is also broken up with the menu boards and that kind of thing. But this is really kind of your main view to the east and your view, I believe, to the south here. So that is the basic gist of it. I guess staff is in support of this project. For one, we would get two users rather than one, which is, rather selfishly good for the tax base of the city. But also it provides more uses for visitors to the more options. And one thing that you probably all know already, the more options you have, the more people come. Options are good and diversity is good. So this just helps to increase that diversity. The outlots are auto-oriented already. Pretty much all of them have some type of drive-through element. There's a few that don't. They don't at Mason Street themselves. They do access the ring road. When we looked at it from a straight zoning stand, it would really fit our C2 highway commercial district or highway business district. However, when we looked at the site design itself, there were a few what we would call exceptions to that district and a few heavier restrictions that we wanted to put on. So we talked about just doing a straight zone. We went with the PUD for multiple. One is we wanted to prohibit particular uses that are permitted in the C2. Things like car lots, contractor yards, and you'll see them in your staff report. There's sort of or in the PUD, there's a list of uses that would be prohibited. They really wouldn't fit that well with the mall concept and the campus concept. There's also a reduction in the Mason Street setback, and that is typically in a C2 would be 15 feet. But as you notice, the redevelopment of the site to the west, you can't see much of it here, but that has established a 5-foot setback. Additionally, the terrace area for Mason Street, if I can bring this up, you can see it. The terrace area for Mason is very large. So really the intent of a setback is to keep it green and kind of buffer it from the road a little bit. But there is a huge buffer in there already. So that reduction from 15 feet to 5 feet, for those reasons, staff was not overly concerned. One of the more restrictive items that we put on them, because these are the outlots to a larger campus, if I can kind of show it, outlots to a larger campus here, we don't really want super tall buildings here. We want the interior to be visible. And as a little bit working with multiple owners and primarily the mall owner and the petitioner here to start allowing what we're calling in-lots along this ring road. So you kind of condense a little bit more density of users in here. And so we don't really want to block massive visibility. So we're dropping the maximum height from 35 feet to 25 feet in this PUD. And then I had mentioned a little earlier, we're going to remove the necessity of an interior setback, which would be in between, right in the middle of this drive aisle. So we do support the request with a few conditions. They are in the PUD. They mainly revolve around cross-access and cross-parking so that zero setback can be put between the two users. And what I did kind of want to mention is I'll turn this off. We did talk about this when the limited production went into the back of the mall, just not that long ago, maybe 6 months, if that. Staff is going to be reaching out to all the owners of the mall itself and the 9 outlots to talk about, basically repealing all 12 of those planned unit developments. They're really a nightmare to regulate. They're piecemealed together over 50-year time frame. And we plan to do that hopefully this fall, maybe at the end of the summer. What we're kind of waiting for is there's private covenants over the top of this property as well. Owners right now are talking about those covenants and trying to deal with the covenants before we change the regulation. Because even if we change the regulation, they're not going to be able to do anything with the covenants anyway. So that's kind of the timing sequence and why we're doing this stopgap measure on just this one little piece. I mean, we don't want to stop redevelopment, but we're not prepared to do the whole repeal and recreate scenario at this point. So, but with that, staff is recommending approval of the request subject to that draft plan unit development that's in your packet.
Question for you, Dave. With the repeal of the other PUDs, would this one also be repealed with that? And then is that what you're saying? They would all be then under one overlay?
Yes, that's our goal. To have one clean overlay. We might consider removing the outlots from the planned unit development. However, because some of the uses aren't the best in the C2, it's likely they'll remain in.
Wonderful. Thanks, Dave. I have to say, I like the design of these. I like the use of shared parking. I think that's something that more businesses should look to do. And you don't really see that out in suburban areas. So I appreciate that. So yeah, I will be voting yes for this.
Is there any further discussion amongst the commission? I saw you.
This, as Anna said, the shared parking I think is great. We're getting 2 for 1 here for the space. My daughter would probably kill me if I said no to a Chipotle. It's her favorite restaurant, so I kind of have to vote in favor of this. But yeah, I think it's great. So I'm excited to see what else goes up around here.
All right. Do we have
I would second.
All right, motion by Alder Corpus Dax and a second by Commissioner Ravinsky. Is there any further discussion? Mr. Buck.
I would just like to just point out that Alder Gerlach is here. I've had a conversation with her earlier, but she didn't know if she could make it or not, but she is here. So I don't know if she wants to comment or not.
I'll just say that I approve, and I hope that you will approve this. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So motion by Alder Corpus Dax, second by Commissioner Ravinsky. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll go ahead with a voice vote. All of those in favor.
Aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, and that will move along unanimously to the next City Council meeting on the 29th. Item number 7, consideration with action. Sorry, I thought someone was waving at me. Consideration with possible act to close the unimproved right-of-way of Cass Street to South Adams Street to limit vehicular traffic submitted by the City of Green Bay.
So this is me again. I hope no one's getting sick of me quite yet. This application was made by the City of Green Bay as well as the adjacent property owners to the north. As you can see, it is just the kind of entrance into Cass Street that is abutting the waterfront. Unlike a street vacation, street closures are used for limited access towards waterfront right-of-ways. So do we want to keep going? The next slide. Oh.
Because this is a public hearing, this is just the actual actionable item. So yeah.
Yeah, so the public hearing will actually be at City Council on June 29th. So this so it's a little bit different than other zoning petitions for street closures. So everybody was, within about 200 feet notified through a Class 2 notice. We received no real feedback other than DPW had some recommendations, and they just wanted maintenance particularly. As you can see, there's the future land use. It does have it marked as parks. Mostly surrounding it is light industry, commercial, vacant, and then to the east you have conservancy, public property, institutional, low-density residential, and then west is the Fox River. Next slide, please. Okay, current zoning, as you can see, it's mostly light industrial, and then you have parks as well. I did want to note that I know I mentioned Public Works was in support of this closure if the easement is maintained and noted. The Parks Department also wanted to make sure that this was only vehicular and not going to impact pedestrian or cyclists along the Fox Trail.
Okay.
So the northern parcel was one of the adjacent property owners with the city that made this application for the closure. And as you can see, they want to put in where the star is a parking lot. So they do want to have ownership and maintenance over that area for the parking lot. And they want to limit vehicular traffic. So this is the site plan that they provided.
Well, and can I add something, Madison?
Yes, please do.
Okay, so if you see the trail here along the riverfront, so this part is the north side of the site. This is the south. This is that Cass Street, sort of unimproved Cass Street right now. The redevelopment authority and the property owner are in negotiations, or they have a development agreement, basically that they're swapping. The redevelopment authority owns a piece of property right along Adams Street. They're going to swap that property with the property owner's property along the river, and then they're going to relocate the trail that is currently along Adams Street, continue it along the river, and then kind of snake it down around this parking lot. And if you've been out there, the land swap hasn't happened yet, but the developers actually already put a asphalt trail about 14 feet wide. It kind of follows this route, and then it kind of has a more gentle curve. We received an easement from this property owner, a gentle curve to kind of come around and connect. And then this is the conceptual development proposal of that developer. So there would be a small parking lot, which Cass would be closed, so it'd still be a right-of-way, but it would be still usable. Pedestrians could walk through. Vehicles could come and park in here, and I don't think they would be limited to this development itself. This is the parking lot that's underneath the Mason Street Bridge. So the bridge actually goes up, and this parking lot is associated with that bridge. So just on a grander scheme of things, this is the overall concept for redevelopment just south of Mason on Adams. But again, we're only talking about that starred piece, and that's that right-of-way that runs to the waterfront. So again, the city wouldn't be giving up the right-of-way, but we would be closing it to vehicular through traffic. Traffic could come in and park, and people could go in and walk. The full-fledged right-of-way, so to speak. And I just wanted to add that.
Thank you, David.
So staff is recommending approval. However, the public hearing, as I said, will be held at the next city council. I just wanted to note that the city traffic engineer is in support, as long as it's only limiting vehicular traffic. And then also DPW wanted to note the purpose of the use, who may use it, who shall pay the costs for construction, maintenance, and anything else.
All right, thank you so much, Madison. And yeah, that last, the site plan overlay was convenient to have, because I was wondering, I know that trail's in there, and I'm like, well, where's the trail in proportion to where that Cass Street is? So it looks like where that parking lot is, they just moved it over a smidge.
Right.
Through there, I see people using it all the time, so.
I believe Parks is working with the southern parcel as well, and that will not be affected. And that was their main concern about just the trail and the extension of the trail.
Okay. Was there any further discussion or questions for staff?
Yeah, I, of course, have a question for staff. When you're coming down Cass Street, you see a parking lot there. I just want to make sure, is there going to be some landscaping buffer? It didn't look like there was anything indicated on the site plan.
Well, that conceptual site plan is really what it is. It's conceptual. So they have not gone through the plan development process or any of the zoning processes yet. But again, this is really for the closure of the street. Not really for that. That'll be coming back through. I believe it's going to come through as a planned unit development. So with the parking lot being part of it.
I just wanted to tease you all with the conceptual plan.
Ken, I'm kind of sharing what I think may be your concern. It looks like it's still going forward through that parking lot and right into the Fox River. And I would hope that the eventual site plan would have some kind of demarcation at the end of the parking lot.
I think that's something the city would like as well. And when it comes to that level of their site plan submission, landscaping would be really nice to include.
I guess in regards to that, RDA still has to take action on it, and we have to take action on zoning. So I think we'll be able to see it a couple times if we have any concerns about site plan or anything else too. So I think this is just the first step in getting the vacancy taken care of.
And with that in mind, I'd move approval.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Bremer and a second by Vice Chair Miller. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll go ahead with a voice vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, and then that will move on to City Council, but as a public hearing?
Correct.
Okay, all right, for the 29th. Okay. All right, and moving on to item number 8, which is a public hearing on a request to remove the zoning code requirement requiring a minimum of a 25-foot building with residential districts submitted by Community and Economic Development.
Actually, I should have probably reworded that. It's a reduction, not a removal, but the consideration was a removal. After further research, we are reducing it. But basically, the zoning code has a minimum width for any side of a residential building. It's 7 feet, and staff is recommending reducing that.
Okay, so with the public hearing, we're looking to hear from parties that are in favor of the proposal. Is there anyone wishing to speak in opposition to the proposal? And is there anyone wishing to provide information only? Is there anyone wishing to speak? Is there anyone wishing to speak? Let the record reflect that no one came forward and this public hearing is now closed. Moving on to the agenda item number 9, consideration with possible action on a request to amend Municipal Code Chapter 44-554, Table 44-2, lot dimension and building bulk requirement associated with minimum building widths from 25 feet to 22 feet submitted by the Department of Community and Economic Development.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to do a quick share screen. This one should not be super long, but basically, I'll give you a little bit of history. So in 2018, I believe in 2018, the city's redevelopment authority commissioned a 7 single-family housing design plan book. And really what they did is they did that to help market and facilitate the redevelopment of very small lots that they tend to acquire over time, sometimes through foreclosures, sometimes through purchases, but they generally are very narrow. And over the years, it was difficult to sell them or get them redeveloped because of setback requirements and just the narrowness nature of them. And then some of the projects that we would get on them were really inconsistent with the neighborhood. An example would be like a old ranch style home turned on its side because it could fit on the lot, but it didn't really match the neighborhood then, turned on its side. They put a door in it, but or a double wide trailer type of thing that's turned sideways. So the RDA did commission this design book, and the design book is actually a nice, I think it's in your packet. It's sort of a nice little design book, and it really had 2 major goals: is to allow these small lots to be developed, but it had just as important goal is that the housing design types are set match the neighborhoods for which they're being recommended. So when you look at the map that I have on the screen, You can kind of see here on the left-hand side, there's a key. So I'll just use the Jackson design. The names are very interesting as well because you'll recognize all those names, right? But the Jackson design is sort of this darker blue area, and you'll see that downtown. And this is very reminiscent of a bungalow style type house with the shake, the front porch, the columns, and the pitch of the roof. So in the design book, this house would be appropriate per staff in these blue areas. But this book has full design sets that are just given out to any developer who is interested in building one of these. And oftentimes they are related to the RDA. Now, when this book was designed in 2018, it was updated in 2019, it was always the intent to go into the zoning code and reduce that minimum width, because you'll notice what I have here besides just the names and the designs is in the corners are the widths of these buildings. So I have 3 of them highlighted. One of the Chicago styles and then the Greenwood and the Shawano are actually at 24 feet and 22 feet. Now reason they're that narrow is to fit on the narrower lots, right? This is an excerpt from our code, and it's that large table with all the references that Chairperson Hanson had referenced. And you'll notice the minimum building width in the code refers to a note. And the notes of the table basically says the minimum building width on all sides shall be at least 25 feet, not including entries or other structures that do not run the full length of the building. We have now gotten quite a bit of interest in some of our designs. And specifically, I believe it's the Chicago that somebody wants to build, several of Chicago's. And they can't get building permits because they are too narrow. So we are kind of doing a quick drop down to this 22 feet, which is something that's being promoted by the city and now being accepted by the neighbors, and kind of fits in again with the neighborhood. So this is sort of a quick fix. Now, I say that, and why we're not going more fully with looking at the widths and just going down to this 22. We've had a lot of discussions on tiny homes, appropriateness of like shotgun style homes, some of which that go as narrow as 14 feet, 15 feet. So very narrow type of homes. There's a lot of negative impacts that can happen from those homes coming in, and staff has not had the ability yet to dig into it really deep. Additionally, our subdivision code, which, as you know, is a companion to the zoning code, has lot requirements in it, lot sizes, and has a lot of duplication of requirements or regulation. That is currently being worked on by Madison and Stephanie in our office, and it's being completely rewritten and updated. Once that's updated, we can then start looking at the relationship to the zoning code, and that's when we're kind of going to get into the weeds with the potential for tiny homes or shotgun homes or alternative type of dwelling units, ADUs, accessory dwelling units, which we currently permit, but they might come in a different form. But really for right now, what we need to do is address this inconsistency between what we're promoting and what the code allows. It's almost impossible to get a variance on a new build. So we are addressing that code to match the narrowest of our designs. There have been discussions that, well, you could put a bump out window with a window seat, then you'd get over the 25. You could extend the porch out a little bit further and get over the 25. But all of those things start degrading the character of the buildings. And so in our opinion, it was let's fix the code rather than mess up the designs. And so with that, we are recommending approval of the text amendment to reduce that minimum residential building width from 25 to 22.
All right, thank you, David.
You're welcome.
Do we have any questions for staff?
I would make a motion to.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Martina, second by Commissioner Bremer. Any further discussion?
I do have just a quick question for Dave. And maybe I just missed it when you were talking about it. So you're looking at basically come in, I'll just say code it for the tiny houses and developments that will kind of, that's gonna be separate than what we're talking about here, but it's gonna be specifically set up for those type of houses.
It may be. So what we're looking at is, do we even need a minimum width? If we have appropriate design controls, you know, if you have a front with a porch and some fenestration with windows and whatnot, do we need to have a minimum? We don't know that at this time. You know, some of the other issues with narrowness of lots, is it going to make some lots that shouldn't be built upon because they're just too small? So those are the things we're going to kind of look at. Probably not specific to tiny homes, although they may be. Probably going to be, and I'm speaking well in advance of our discussions at staff, but it's probably going to be some type of combination with a reduction of those regulatory controls like basic width and stuff, and an addition of some type of design standard to meet the same intent. I can tell you from discussions with some of the senior staff at the city, that 25 foot was really put into place because it was 1 foot wider than a double wide trailer, which is 20.
Got it.
And that was the problem, that these double wide trailers were being turned sideways and put onto these residential lots, which, if you've ever seen one in a neighborhood, is typically pretty disruptive, you know, of the continuity of the block. Now, if we had controls with certain amount of windows, you know, that the pitch of the roof has to be a certain way, those types of controls, it might not be such a bad thing. But we don't have those currently, or not enough, I should say. So I don't know how that's going to come in to you guys for text amendments. But I think our goal is to reduce the regulatory stuff and add design.
Great, that's what I love to hear. Thanks.
Any other discussion? I've got a motion by Commissioner Ravinsky and a second by Commissioner Bremer. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? All right. And with that, it passes unanimously to City Council on the 29th. Moving on to informational director's report. Take it away, Neil.
Good evening, everybody. I'll keep it short because you guys are always, it's like you guys know me. You put me at the end, so I'm intentionally brief so I can get you guys out of here. Just want to make a note. Dave, I think our staff had actually had some discussions about possibly the meeting schedule for July. I think staff was considering possibly waiting until maybe having just one meeting in July on the 26th. I don't know if we had any other discussion on that. We were waiting to see what applications came in today.
Correct. We received one application. However, the council doesn't meet in July. So whether it goes the first meeting of July or the second meeting of July, it goes to the council at the same date. So rather than having a meeting just to meet, I think that's what we're thinking, is to cancel the first and maybe make the second one a little bit longer, but you know.
So just FYI, I think that right now, unless there's concern by the commissioners on that, I think our staff recommendation would be to just see you guys once in July instead of twice, if that's okay. We'll take care of that, formally addressing that as we go forward. Just a couple other dates I want folks to be aware of. We are having our annual joint review board meeting with regarding our TIF districts with those. The joint review board itself meets this Wednesday at 11 a.m. Just simply as our annual statutory requirement to report on the financial status of all those districts. If this body would be interested in seeing that report, certainly it is something we'd be happy to make available on an informational basis once that report has been completed. Happy to do that. Obviously, the holiday coming up, City Hall is closed on July 5th. Just a reminder. Happy 4th of July, everyone. Our next RDA meeting is on July 13th. Most likely we'll be reviewing some changes to the development agreement, possibly for the University Heights project, the apartment project on there that has kind of stalled. The first two buildings have gone in on that project. We're looking at possibly changing over to a new developer with a little bit different development concept. So assuming that gets RDA support on the 13th and that goes through council, we will anticipate something coming back before this body here, certainly later on this year, to take a look at a site design for that particular site. Just a couple of other smaller notes. The Chamber of Commerce has been working on the Greater Green Bay Area Chamber has been working on updating their economic development strategic plan. There is a significant emphasis on, I think probably most notable is probably the strengthening the downtown urban core being one item, which obviously this body I think has a vested interest in, as well as kind of seeing and expanding the transportation and logistics sector, which I think is also something that you're going to see probably have some impact on our land use discussions related to expansion of the I-43 business park, some of the existing areas, and kind of trying to maybe plan for the transportation in and out of some of our existing industrial areas as the increased demand for transportation and logistics increases on those areas. So certainly likely to see some additional conversation coming from that. And then I guess just the last note I want to add on to the conversation regarding the building width. That is certainly from our standpoint, something that was a consistent move, not only to make it certainly from a design standpoint, but also helps advance some of our initiatives in our housing study that needs an assessment that says we need to have some increase some flexibility to allow some of those more affordable units certainly to be located on those smaller lots. So again, that housing study continues to come up in conversations regularly, probably one of the more referenced planning documents I think we have these days in our conversations with developers. So with that, certainly available for any questions anyone might have.
I do have a quick question, Neil. This is not on what you just covered, but I'm wondering, is there a PUD for the Whitney Park development from MKE out of Milwaukee?
They certainly did do the Whitney. I'm trying to think of the townhomes. Probably was before my time, DJ, in terms of that. But yeah, they actually do have. They have. Was that probably? Let's see if David. Do you remember if that was a planned unit development or not, specifically for that site?
Yes, it was.
Okay.
Were there any time constraints or time limit put on the completion of the development?
I don't believe there was.
Probably not in the PUD though. I'm guessing though, but they did receive some TIF assistance, DJ. So we probably have to take a look. I'm sure there's some time restrictions based on they need to have a certain amount of increment in the ground by a certain time. So we have had our initial discussion with them. They are actually asking for some their first TIF installment back from us in terms of kind of it depends on when the occupancy permit was issued. So we're kind of going back with them a little bit. I think they just barely missed 2020. So kind of figure out and try to see if there's something we can do for them. I mean, they literally missed the assessment deadlines, which was obviously 1/1 of every year. I think they came in literally just like 2 weeks after the first of the year. So that bumps them a full year. Hopefully we think that they were substantially assessed on a substantially complete project so that we might be able to still make out some assistance to them. But that would need to go back to the RDA and council in order for us to review that. So I'm sure there's some deadlines in there and I can certainly take a look at that. If you're interested in what those would be, I'm happy to share that out.
Yeah, just interested when it be completed because I just know that was I thought there was a PUD for that, and it's not been completed, and I don't see any construction. So just curious. That's all.
Happy to provide a report back on that.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, so then it looks like the tentative date of the next meeting is July 12th of 2020. Move that to the 26th, but as it's the 12th right now.
Madam Chair, we have Alder Steuer wishing to speak.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Sydney. Neil, I was going to ask you, some years ago on council, we used to get a report from the Planning and Community Development Director on the Planning Division, Housing Division, RDA, and it was a hard copy. But I'm just wondering, I realize the Plan Commission meetings and such cover a lot of that, but it was a very helpful tool. I go through what your office is going through on a daily basis, monthly basis, and it doesn't have to be a tremendously in-depth report, but just some of the big things that are going on, some of the developments that are happening, just to kind of keep up. And I have some hard copies from 6 years ago I'd be willing to share with you. You can look at it and just see if that's something that would be amenable to continue doing for council and staff and whoever else might like that.
Absolutely, Alder Sorry, and I've actually beat you to the punch, sir. We actually have started trying to provide a written report to the RDA as part of that. So we're certainly trying to get into that point. Usually, it depends on how crazy we are trying to get agenda packets put together. But our staff's intention is to have a written report, certainly in that report, but we're also looking at doing that similarly for Plan Commission as well as the EDA. So trying to figure out a report format that could just kind of work for all three and provide that. And obviously that would certainly be provided then to council as well at that point. So I think it's a great idea. That'd be great. We think it's a great idea, Alder Steuer. In fact, we're already starting to try it. So
all right, get some rest. That's all I ask. Thank you.
I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, motion by Alder Corpus Dax, second by Commissioner Bremer. All those in favor?
Aye.
Bye.
Aye.
thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Happy 4th of July, everybody.
We'll see you next month.
And Canada Day.
And happy Canada Day.